but I wanted to get back into my reading journal and make sure that I do an update because the end of the year is coming and I have a lot of ideas for my next reading journal. So for the month of October, I read 13 books, which is just hilarious because that's considered the spooky number, right? And I am using my flap to put my books down. And I actually read a total of, I think, 7 spooky books, which is awesome. So that's just about half. And it was overall a pretty good month for reading. I forgot my year in review. I forgot to cut it out. I seem to do that like every other month. And then the next step is always adding to my shelves and just writing out the titles. I started the month finishing a fantastic nonfiction book called Grandma Gatewood's Long Walk. Basically, this middle-aged woman decided one day that she's just going to walk, and she's going to walk the Appalachian Trail. And she wound up being the first woman to do that. And it was really, really interesting. But I also listened to another audio called The Trap, which I did not care for. One of the narrators, like the bad guy, didn't sound like a bad guy. And it just, I don't know. I just didn't like the story. I just didn't like it. I also read The Very Irregular Society of Witches. I think I said that right. Irregular Witches. Either way, I think you guys know what book I'm talking about. That book was really fantastic, and I will do a favorite spread for it. Whether or not I share it now or save it, I haven't decided yet, but I definitely am going to include that in my favorites. For the Goodreads challenge, I colored in 13 boxes, and I'm using kind of a beige color for October since I already did an orange, and then I used that Everyday Explorers calendar stamp set to stamp out the small month when it is half a box, and then the large month when it is a full box. And then I just have to do some fancy finagling with my stamp. I pulled it off the block and then just used a piece of paper to cover up. So I actually wound up doing it absolutely perfect, you guys, and it was really awesome. I love when that happens. So I did the OC on the left-hand side and then just the T on the right-hand side. So it worked out great. And I know I've mentioned this, but with this particular page, I'm definitely going to do 2 pages next year and make sure that I give myself plenty of room because I did not have enough room. The only thing I added to that list was another middle grade book and 2 graphic novels. But I need more room so that way I can kind of go more in depth with my goals. But this was my first year doing that particular challenge, and I'm glad that I did. Genres, I love that. It's been really fun to keep track of my genres. And I'm also going to keep Rate the Romance for next year because I love that. So I have the last chapter 4 to add, which is October, November, December, obviously, and I'm going to add 2 books to it. I originally grabbed 3, but I'm trying to get ahead on my printing. So The Way I Hate Him is actually for November. So the only ones for this month were With Love from Cold World, which was a really great, cute love story taking place in an old ice skating rink. It's really good. But it was for the blue cover, and then the other one was The Witch of Wild Things, which is paranormal romance, and that was a really fantastic book. That was definitely a favorite book because I just blew through that book so quickly. October felt like a month where books took a little bit longer, but that's okay. That's how November is too. And December is starting off that way. I just hope that I find more time to read. So I grabbed a star stamp and I stamped out my ratings, and then I can move on to the next portion, which is going to be building my October calendar. And I know that for next year, I am definitely going to do a lot more space, probably even go on over to the second page and do much less decorating as far as like the bottom corner and also the title area, because I just want to have bigger boxes, especially since I do 2 different types of books, audio, and then of course the physical books. And that would just definitely give me more room. I'm also on the lookout for a calendar stencil. That way it can help me, and a circle stencil so I can draw small circles, and then that way that can help me like fill in if I'm counting my Goodreads, and then also a square stencil to help me if I want to tally up something. So I'm just looking for stencils that can help me and make the process quicker. Because I am terrible at counting all these boxes, and every month I have to flip back because I just can't remember. But generally it is 4 boxes across and then 5 down. But I totally messed it up on the Sunday column, and I'm going to have to get out my jelly roll pen and kind of fix it, which is also hilarious, you guys, because a lot of the lines that I wound up covering up, I actually use a few of those when I'm figuring out how long my books took. So I use those lines to like be the continuation of the book, if that makes sense. So it's kind of like I didn't have to use my jelly roll. I could have just waited, but I didn't wait. That's okay. You can't really tell. I mean, you can kind of tell, but oh well. I'm not going to like start this calendar over again. That would just be a waste of time. And since this is October, obviously I'm going with more oranges and a pop of blue because I'm using the Ashley Horton CutShoppe kit, which is called October Lane. So I'm going to have some pieces from there. I'm going with a bright orange for the calendar spots, and then I will start writing in my books that I have read. And right now I'm reading Lord and Olympus. It's a graphic novel, volume 2. Then I'm going to read Holiday Romance. I got stuck reading the book, The Song Ballad, or Ballad of the Songbird and Snakes. I don't know. It's The Hunger Games, the first one. And oh, you guys, it took me forever to get through. So I wasn't necessarily a fan of that book. So I am hoping to get right into the holiday romances very soon. And I'm listening to a really awesome thriller called The Quiet Tenant. So as always, I'd love for you guys to share with me what you are reading. I love seeing those comments with what you are reading. Okay, so I pulled from my stash from the cut shop, and I had this cut file left over that said October Reads, and so I'm just going to go ahead and use that. I also have a broomstick, and I'm pretty sure that came from the kit because it was like in my baggie that contains all the embellishments. So I'm hoping it came from that kit. And then I have a journaling card that I'll cut out a few pumpkins. I also got a giant blue star because, like I said, I wanted a little bit of blue. Not so Halloween in your face, but just a little bit of Halloween. And then also the butterflies too. I love how Ashley put those in the kit. At first I was like, why is there butterflies in the kit? But personally, I think butterflies can be all year round. And random fact that popped into my head, don't butterflies, like the monarch butterflies in California, don't they migrate in October? I'm pretty sure they do. So butterflies work. That whole story means that the butterflies work. I am laying down everything with my adhesive because you guys know that I like to lay things out first and then put everything down. That is something that I want to work on next year, is just lay it down. Don't just plan it out, lay it down, because time is short. Let's just be brave and put it on the page and hope for the best, right? I love having extra room up at the top, so that's why I used that broom. And I also love having that extra space to do lots of stampy stuff. I could have done a row of pumpkins up at the top of the calendar. That would have been fun to do, but I just did the broomstick, which is really cute. And like I said, I started the month with Grandma Gatewood, which I read for Read Around the USA. That was a September book, but I hadn't had a chance to finish it. So I finished it, I think on the 1st. And then the physical book that I was reading was called Only Love Can Hurt Like This. And that was a fantastic love story. I loved it. And then I decided to read the first Lore Olympus graphic novel, which I'm really enjoying. And I also read a graphic novel called Deadly Class Volume 1, and that one was something else. That was like a teen horror killing. It was wow. It was even a little too graphic for me. I'm not sure if I'm going to continue the series, but we'll see. And then I spent a very, very long time listening to The Trap. That was the book that I told you guys I was not a fan of. I also conquered the mammoth book, The Brothers Hawthorne, which also took me a very long time, but it was a very big book. And I don't know, I feel like the series might be just dragging on and on. And now I've heard that there is another book. I just don't feel that the book is moving at the pace that it used to, or the series is moving at the pace that it used to, which is kind of a bummer. I finished off the month with a children's book that was really fantastic called The Jumbies. I want to say it's the Caribbean, but it's a really awesome story. And I also listened to Keeper of the Enchanted Rooms, which I could not get enough of. It was so good. I listened to it on audio and it was just wonderful. And I believe it's a series, so I think there's 3 books in total about the Enchanted Room, so I'm excited to listen to those as well. My next step is going to be grabbing my markers. I pretty much have my markers set aside that I want to use, but I wanted to bring in a little bit of green and not just have orange and blue. To me, that's almost too different of a Halloween type color scheme. So I decided to bring in the green, and I am going to highlight the audiobooks in green, and then kind of a neutral color I will highlight the physical books. I think it was 8 physical and 5 audio. And then I'm going to go ahead and add some stamped phrases because I love adding all the stamped phrases. I pulled some Syncopation Designs stamps, and I'm going to go ahead and use those. The Night Owl Book Club, definitely going to use that one. That's up in the top right corner. I am picking out my inks. I was hoping that I had a blue ink that coordinated with the blue star, but I don't, and so I'm just going to have to work around that. I decided to just stamp in orange, brown, and a little bit of green. And of course, I stamped the number of my book in black ink. And for next year, I might just do that as a die cut instead. Same thing with the months. Like I've mentioned maybe already, I'm trying to figure out ways to make it easier to put together the monthly spreads. I love stamping, but if there's a few shortcuts that I can do, like the stencils that I was talking about earlier, and also some like pre-made digital clear sticker pages, then I'm going to go ahead and do that. I moved the broom over a little bit. That way I could stamp in the Saturday box all-nighter, because that's me. Anytime there's a weekend, I'm reading all night until I literally just pass out with my book. I took some stars from Jennifer's stamp sets and stamped those in brown and also green, just so I could have that pop of green, since I know that I want to use it on the other set of pages. So I pretty much have this one all wrapped up. I just want to glue down a few phrases from Ashley's kit. I wound up only doing one, and I'm not quite sure why. I think I meant to add more, but just forgot. So I added a blue one above the cut file that says October, and I also added a few leaves in blue. That way there was some blue over on the right hand side. And that will wrap up that calendar page, and now I'm going to start on the stats. I started off by adding in the covers. And like I've mentioned in previous reading journal videos, the My Rating stamp from Jennifer's shop is a little bit wider than my book covers. So I have to stamp and then adhere my book cover, and just repeat this process until I have all of the books laid down. And my books are 1.5 inches tall and then 1 inch wide. And I'm usually able to get 4 across. and that will fill up the entire page. And so if I read a lot, then I just shrink the books down until I like the size. And of course I use Photoshop elements, but you do not have to. You could always use a app I use called Pick Frame, and that does collages, and you could always just print out your book covers using a collage size of your choice. So I almost have all the books done, and I think the next step that I did was to color in my rating. I kind of had ratings all over the place, and I feel like my average rating wound up being pretty low considering I try to do my research and not read books that have fairly low ratings. I added the double layer of washi tape. I love doing that. I've done it in my reading journal spreads for a few years now, and I don't see that changing anytime soon because I love the double layer of washi. It really establishes the color scheme, and I also want to make sure that I continue to leave a little spot in the bottom right hand corner for not only the average reading, but so I can add some washi on the right hand side and have a little decorative spot down on the right hand side. So I'm just thinking things through for next year and sharing that with you guys on my thoughts. I added in the ratings. I have mostly 5 to 4 stars in the first row. And then of course the Trap was 3 stars. Deadly Class was like 3.5 stars. And then The Kiss Curse, I listened to that book, and I don't know what it was about that book, you guys, but it took me a long time to get into that book, and I actually had to stop and like rewind and go back and figure out who was who. And I don't know, that book just had a hard time holding my interest, but in the end it turned out to be a pretty good book. I mean, it fit the category of paranormal romance and adding in a spooky book because I really wanted to listen to a spooky book. I don't know. I just want to be able to read a spooky book and also listen to a spooky book, which is also what I'm trying to do with the holiday books. I'm currently looking for audiobooks that I can listen to that are holiday themed. I flipped back to my other pages to see how many lines I need between the different categories and different lines that I want to draw because I can never remember it. And again, I know I said this already, but I'm definitely going to write it down for next year so that way I can just look at that guide and know. Like I'll get a blank sheet of grid paper and then just kind of sketch out my layout because I love this layout and I don't see it changing much for next year. So I'm just going to leave the basic thing and I can just make a template using another piece of grid paper. So at the bottom I have the pages and then the hours listened, genres, 3 lines, so that way I can do like 3 special categories of my choosing, and then 3 boxes over to the right, and then in the middle is my pie chart, and I use StoryGraph to figure out the different categories for the books that I read, or I guess I should say emotions. I think that's what they go by, like the main theme or emotion of the book. And I do 6, I think I already said that, but I did 6 categories. And then up at the top, I'll stamp all the stats. I used a Carrie Bradford stamp set, and I think it's called Iris, and it's the smaller one. So I'll stamp all the stats and then build my spread from there using all the different stats that I collected from StoryGraph. I'd love to figure out some more stats that I could include or figure out like a good list of special categories. That's another thing I'd like to work on as well. So if you guys have any special categories that you include when you're doing your stats for your reading, I'd love to know that if you want to leave it in the comments section. So I'm almost done with the stats, and then I think I start from the bottom up. That's usually how I work, and that makes the most sense to me. So the number of pages was 4,281. Pretty good month considering how busy October was. I can't even tell you how busy October was. My husband and I have always said our kids are going to be in one activity and one only, and somehow it just wound up being 2 activities for both of them because their activities all collided at once, I guess you could say. So They both had 2 for the entire month of October. It made for a wild month. I listened to 47 and a half hours, and I put the period in the wrong spot, but I'm going to fix that in a little bit. I don't think I have done that quite yet, but I did add the number of pages that were part of the audio, which is 2,692. And I fixed the period for the audio, and now I am counting out the books for paper, Kindle, and audio. So audio was 5, like I thought, and paper was 8. And I actually read none on the Kindle, so none of those. I did listen to Kindle Unlimited audiobooks, but I did not read any Kindle books. My average rating was 4.19, which again, I think is pretty low. Genres were all over the place, and I accidentally used the wrong pen, which I don't know about you, but bugs me when you have a specific pen you want to use and then you use the wrong one. So I have magical realism, historical, graphic novel, middle grade, biography, romance, mystery, horror, and thriller. So obviously I'm going with spooky reads, and I then decide, well, what else can I include that's kind of spooky themed? And since I read a lot of paranormal romances, I'm just going to go with that. And obviously there's going to be a lot of overlap between that and spooky reads. So, that's okay. I still wanted to have that category. And then I also included faves. It was kind of hard to pick my faves, but I finally narrowed it down to 3. So 7 spooky reads, 4 paranormal romances, and then 3 faves. So I like those stats, and I love having that little spot right there to do 3 fun categories. And then down in the bottom right of this page, the stats page, I will add some more word phrases and also some flowers, and then a really large butterfly up at the top. So I chose Happy Haunting up by the stats, and I thought about putting another orange one, but I really liked how I put Happy Haunting there as a black, bold phrase to draw your eye to the title. And I also included Halloween Reads down in the bottom right corner of the page over on the other side. So there's a black phrase on both of them with a butterfly. So it's kind of creating the same cluster but in different spots, and it makes for a really nice visual way to go around the spread. And in the bottom right corner on the left page, I used Fangtastic and Spellbook. And then, of course, the flowers as well. And I'm going to do some stamping with the stars again, but this time in some green ink, like a sage color, which I think is so pretty. And I will finish up with my pie chart that I always find hilarious because, like I've told you guys, I have a hard time dividing up a pie chart and also staying in the center, like where the center is. I just have the hardest time. So I'm going to have one big chunk, well, actually 2 big chunks, and then, no, I can't count, 3 big chunks and then 3 smaller chunks. And I usually wind up with that amount because my 6th category, if you're going around clockwise, is always just the others. And then the first 2 big chunks are like the biggest emotions or themes of the books. And then I have little slices. So once I have that all drawn out in pencil, that's when I will go over it with my black felt tip pen, fine tip pen. And then I will erase it with my sand eraser and grab my markers. So really awesome thing was that my major category this month was adventurous, which was fun because it's like October, Halloween. So that was fun. And then the next one was mysterious. So totally different from every other month that I've had. And after that was lighthearted, which is going to be like the neutral. And then blue is emotional, which if you guys have been watching my videos, you know that emotional has been my biggest category all year long. So that was fun to see. And then gray is going to be funny. And my other category, I did it again, you guys. I wanted to add in a little bit more blue because all my book covers had blue, and that's initially why I went with the blue and black and orange for my color scheme, because my book covers had so much blue. Well, I didn't like it. I colored it in. I'm like, you're not gonna like this, Sabrina. You're not gonna like it. And I didn't like it. So I went ahead, grabbed my scrap piece of paper, and I am gonna fix that pie chart. This time I grabbed the circle and I'm going to cut out